Hello, this is a revision guide to the GCSE text and Inspector Calls. As normal, we'll be going through the two assessment criteria, that is understanding what the play is about and its language, form and structure. This is the revision guide for Sheila Birling for your GCSE post-1914 drama text. Let's first of all then look at Sheila's stage direction, or Priestley's use of stage direction to describe Sheila. We can see she's described as a pretty girl, pleased with life, and excited. Priestley deliberately exaggerates Sheila's youth and innocence. She is portrayed as a typical girl of the time. She stays out of the complexities of life and is simply happy to be getting married. Her life is mapped out for her by the men in her life. Here then is a summary of the kind of thing you'd want to say about Sheila. She's instinctive. She has an instinctive feel for the truth. She's willing to speak up when she needs to. She is socially aware. She understands what Eva Smith might be going through and reacts really strongly to her death. At the beginning, she's really materialistic. Now I really feel engaged is one of the key lines she uses. She's protected by the men in her life, and also though protective of perhaps Eva later in the play. She begins the play as being self-centred. She's vindictive and quite jealous. And by the end, she's very similar to the inspector. As with any of the characters, it's important to think, are they a capitalist character or are they a socialist? Well, Sheila represents socialism. She is a woman who realises that to survive we must be responsible for our crimes, in her words. She feels genuine empathy for Eva Smith. Young girls who are brought up to accept the She also represents young girls who are brought up to accept the patriarchy or male-dominated society, and their role in life is as a servant of men. She also represents the younger generation who are caught between the world of the past and the world of the future. A grade 9 student might comment that Sheila offers us an insight into Priestley, as, through her, the moral message of the play is explored. In many ways, she represents the effect of capitalism, as she's unsettled by what capitalism means. It frightens me, the way you talk. If you look at the play as a biblical text, you'd notice the characters represent different sins. In fact, Eva Smith represents perhaps some of the 7 heavenly virtues. Sheila represents the sin of envy. She is superficial and obsessed with appearance, as indicated by her dehumanisation of Eva in comparison to herself. She calls her at the start a creature. Let's join Sheila as she talks about her engagement with her father. I would like you to look out for the places where the dialogue suggests that Sheila is a possession of her father, up to the point of marriage, when of course Mr. Birling's role as Sheila's carer is taken over by Gerald.
Don't object.
Go on, Gerald. Just do you object?
I wouldn't dream of it. In fact, I insist upon being treated as one of the family now. After all, I've been trying long enough, haven't I?
Well, haven't I?
Yes. Except that time last summer when you hardly came near me, and I wondered what had happened to you.
And I told you I was awfully busy at the works all that time.
Yes, that's what you say.
Now, Sheila, don't tease him. When you're married, you'll come to realise that men with important work do sometimes have to spend a great deal of their time and energy on their business.
What's the joke?
I don't know. Suddenly felt I just had to laugh.
You're squiffy.
I'm not.
What an expression, Sheila. Really the things you girls pick up these days.
If you think that's the best she can do...
Don't be an ass, Eric.
Now stop it, you two. Arthur?
Oh, yes, of course, yes. Gerald, on the occasion of this quiet little family party, I'd like to say to you quite frankly, without any pretences, that your engagement to Sheila means a tremendous lot to me. She'll make you happy, and I'm sure you'll make her happy too. You're just the sort of son-in-law I've always wanted. Your father, Sir George, and I have been friendly rivals in business for many years, but now that you've brought us together, perhaps we may look forward to the day when Crofts and Birlings may stop competing and work together for lower costs and higher prices.
Yeah.
Arthur, I don't think you ought to talk about business on an occasion like this.
I just mentioned it in passing, my dear. No, what I really wanted to say was, here's wishing the pair of you the best that life can give. Gerald and Sheila.
Yes, Gerald. Yes, Sheila, darling. Our congratulations and very best wishes.
Thank you.
Eric?
All the best. She's got a nasty temper sometimes, but she's not bad, really.
Chum. I can't drink to this, can I? When do I drink?
You can drink to me.
All right then, Gerald. I drink to you.
Thank you. And I drink to you.
And I hope I can make you as happy as you deserve to be.
You be careful, or I'll start weeping.
Oh, perhaps this will help you not to.
Oh, Gerald, have you got it? Is it the one you wanted me to have?
The very one.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's perfect. Now I feel really engaged.
To summarise, Sheila in Act 1. She is the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Birling. The dinner party is in honour of her engagement to Mr. Gerald Croft. She is presented initially as naive and a little immature, directly juxtaposing her role at the end of the play. She is materialistic and concerned with looks and appearance. She wants to look engaged and is excited to marry Gerald. She defends Eva in Act 1 as a person, but her socialism is hidden under her loyalty to her father and the traditions of being a woman at the time. She lacks understanding in the real world. She is conflicted as she's immature but beginning to accept her role as a grown woman. Let's begin looking then at some key scenes from Act 1. Sheila excited. Oh, Gerald, you've got it. Is it the one you wanted me to have? Yes, the very one. Oh, it's wonderful. Look, Mummy. Isn't it a beauty? Oh, darling. She crosses to Mrs. Birling and kisses Gerald hastily. Steady, old girl, the buffs. I think it's perfect. Now I really feel engaged. So you ought, darling. It's a lovely ring. Be careful with it. Careful. I'll level it out of my sight for an instant. Look, Eric. Well, it came at just the right moment. That was clever of you, Gerald. Now, Arthur, if you've got no more to say, I think Sheila and I had better go to the drawing room and leave you young men. She and Gerald rise. Her onomatopoeic O exaggerates Sheila's childlike qualities. Her simplistic language implies a sense of wonder and innocence. Her term for her mother, Mummy, makes her sound simplistic and immature. Her inability to speak in sentences exaggerates her happiness and her innocence. Priestley uses stage direction to exaggerate her happiness and her eagerness. Sheila is materialistic and needs a ring to prove she's engaged. When she says, look, Eric, she proves she thinks more of looks than people. She isn't willing to let the ring leave her sight, but Gerald disappeared for a whole summer. As she says, I'll never let it go out of my sight for an instant. Perhaps the ring is more important than Gerald himself. Key quotes then from Act 1. For a grade 9, we might look in Act 1 and see Sheila repeatedly making Gerald aware that she's suspicious of him. Yes, that's what you say, is a line she says quite early on. Yet she doesn't fully question him for fear of the affair becoming public and hurting his reputation. Her role as his wife is to support him, not interrogate him. Now, contextually, Sheila represents how many women were at the time. The page that's currently on the screen is from a magazine from 1955 called Housekeeping Monthly. It says all the rules for being a good wife. Sheila's job, I suppose, is to fulfil these rules for Gerald. Sheila knows she must follow her father's orders. Her role was not one of business, and so she's asked to leave when business topics are discussed. For more information then on what it's like and some of the rules for a woman.
Okay, so we have to get you a sword, a shield, blue pants. Oh, and I can give you the mustache I wore last Halloween. Oh, come on. So what if you didn't get the role of the princess? Being a knight is awesome. At least you're not playing a tree. Gender role stereotypes are when a person is expected to act in a certain way based on society's expectations related to their gender. Traditional gender roles go back to a time when there were clear and, at times, unequal rules about how people were expected to act based on their gender. People who were born male were expected to be strong and aggressive, not emotional, and, of course, to love sports. People who were born female were expected to be kind and nurturing, emotional, and domestic, meaning they were all supposed to be able to cook and clean. Gender role stereotypes also affect people's understanding of who is beautiful and who is not. People still go to great lengths to try and conform to these unrealistic ideals they see in popular media. They diet, obsessively exercise, and go through plastic surgery. Additionally, strict stereotypes about gender police people's emotions. Girls are not expected to show anger, and boys aren't supposed to be empathetic, nurturing, or vulnerable. Luckily, as times have changed, so have people's expectations about gender roles. More and more people are free to behave in ways that are true to who they really are, and that is a good thing. Until next time, don't forget to visit me at amaze.org or go to my YouTube channel to watch more. Bye!
As you can see then, there are very, very clear stereotypical male and female roles. Sheila feels she must fulfill the role expected of her as a woman. And to an extent, Eric feels the same way. Eric must be what a son should be. We know, though, that it's a bit more complicated than this for Sheila. She exhibits quite a few male roles, certainly by the end, or male stereotypes, certainly by the end of the play. Sheila contrasts Gerald with purple-faced old men, implying she doesn't want her future to be like her mother and father's. This could be taken as a subtle way to control Gerald, perhaps very similar to the way that Mrs. Birling attempts to control Mr. Birling. Perhaps she isn't as simple as she first appears.
Gender roles have been around for many years. They have been passed down from generation to generation and are learned by the age of 4. We are taught that women should stay home and do house chores, such as cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the kids. We are told that they should have long hair and wear colors such as pink, red, and purple. Men, on the other hand, are taught and encouraged to be the breadwinners for their families, that is, going to the workforce, and when at home to only do macho activities such as mowing the lawn and repairing items around the house. They are also told to wear dark colors and to have short hair. However, it is the 21st century, and male and female roles are starting to interchange. Men are now the ones staying at home and taking care of the kids, while the women go out to work and provide financial stability. And as for the house chores, they are now being done by both genders. A recent study showed that there was 1.1 million stay-at-home dads in 1989. That number nearly doubled by 2012 to 2 million stay-at-home dads. Now more than ever, women are going to college, getting various degrees, and becoming professionals. After coming a long way, women are finally being perceived as equal to men in the workforce. These new changes in gender roles are being passed down to the new generation.
Sheila's gender and her role in Edwardian society play a significant part in shaping her into being selfish and a naive young woman who takes the stage at the start of the play. Despite her father's working-class roots, Sheila has been raised with upper-class ideals, largely due to her family's newfound wealth. As a young woman, she's not expected to work. This is the man's domain at that point in history, and instead is more focused on marrying with the right kind of chap. She is used by her father to elevate his own social status, and has been treated much of her life just as another of Arthur's possessions. Early on, she's noticeably interested in material objects, but by the end of the play, she finds her independence and her social values change. You saw from the clip that times have moved on since the play was written, and Sheila is the beginning of that process. By the end of the play, she's becoming much more modern than perhaps she is at the start. A grade 9 candidate might notice that by the middle of the play, Sheila has grown in confidence and uses sarcasm. She is clearly on equal terms with Gerald, matching him almost word for word as she begins to assert her own authority. As the play develops, Sheila evolves. The audience witness Sheila begin to realise her own faults. She really listens to the inspector and regrets her actions. Of the characters, she is the most simplistic in her treatment of Eva Smith. A grade 9 might mention that part of the reason why Sheila changes so much is that she was simply copying or emulating her mother's behaviour in Millwoods. She wasn't really being herself, instead conforming to what her parents expect of her. From this point on, she's determined to be herself and not follow in her parents' footsteps. We join then the inspector's interrogation of Sheila Birling.
She was taken on in a shop, and a good shop too. Millwood.
Millwoods? We go there. She was lucky to get taken on there.
Yeah, that's what she thought. It was a nice change from the factory. And she liked being among pretty clothes, with no doubt. And she felt she was making a new start.
Yes, of course.
And then she got into trouble there, I suppose.
Well, it seems that a customer complained about her. So she had to go.
I thought as much.
When was this?
End of January last year.
What did this girl look like?
If you come over here, I'll show you.
What's the matter with her?
Recognised her from the photograph, didn't she?
Yes.
What the devil do you mean by coming here upsetting my girl like that?
No, I didn't do it. She's upsetting herself.
Why? Why?
Now, that I don't know. That's what I'm here to find out.
I think I'll find out myself first.
Shall I go to her, sir?
No, leave this to me. I'm going to talk to my wife. Tell her what's happening.
I'd like to see that photograph now, Inspector.
All in good time.
Well, I don't see why I shouldn't
Let's
see
have one line of inquiry at a time, Mr. Croft. Otherwise we'll all be talking at once and wonder where we are. If you've anything to tell me, you'll have an opportunity of doing it soon.
Well, I suppose I have.
Look here, I've had just about enough of this.
I dare say.
I'm sorry, you see, we were having a party here, and I've had a few drinks, including rather a lot of champagne. And I've got a headache, and as I'm only in the way here, I think it would be better if I turned in.
And I think you'd better stay in.
Why should I?
Well, it might be less trouble. If you turned in now, you might have to turn out again soon. Well, Miss Birling?
You knew it was me all the time, didn't you?
I had an idea it might be.
Well, I felt rotten about it at the time, and now I feel a lot worse. Did it make much difference to her?
Yes, I'm afraid it did. The last real steady job she has.
So I'm really to blame?
No, not entirely. A great deal happened to her after that. But you're partly to blame, just like your father.
What did Sheila do?
I went to the manager at Millwoods, and I told him that if they didn't get rid of that girl, I'd never go near the place again, and I'd persuade Mother to close our account with them.
Now, why did you do that?
Because I was in a furious temper.
Was it the girl's fault?
No, not really. It was my fault. All right, Gerald, you needn't look at me like that. At least I'm trying to tell the truth. I expect you've done things you're ashamed of too.
You never said I hadn't. I don't see why you had to
All
get
right,
this...
you can settle that between you later. What happened?
I'd gone in there to try something on. It was an idea of my own. Mother had been against it and so had the assistant, but I insisted. As soon as I tried it on, I knew that they were right. It just didn't suit me at all. I looked silly in the thing. Well, this girl had brought the dress up from the workroom, and when the assistant, Miss Frances, had asked her something about it, this girl, to show us what she meant, had held the dress up as if she was wearing it. And it just suited her. She was the right type for it, just as I was the wrong type. When I tried the thing on and looked at myself in the mirror and knew that it was all wrong, I caught sight of this girl, smiling, as if to say, doesn't she look awful? And I was absolutely furious. And then I went to the manager and I told him that this girl had been very impertinent. Well, how could I know what would happen afterwards? If she'd been some miserable, plain little creature, I don't suppose I'd have done it. But she was very pretty. She looked as if she could take care of herself. I couldn't be sorry for her.
In fact, in a kind of way, you might be said to have been jealous of her.
Yes, I suppose so.
And so you used the power you had, as the daughter of a good customer and a man well known in the town, to punish the girl, just because she made you feel like that.
Yes, but it didn't seem to be anything very terrible at the time, don't you understand? And if I could help her now, I would.
But you can't. It's too late. She's dead.
My God. It's a bit thick when you come to think of it.
Oh, shut up, Eric. I know. It's the only time I've ever done anything like that. Why did it happen?
That's what I asked myself when I was looking at that dead girl tonight.
Some key quotes then that Sheila uses to describe Eva Smith. Her jealousy clearly comes through. She told the manager at Millwoods that if they didn't get rid of the girl, implying then she sees her more of an object, that she'd simply get her fired, or she'd persuade her parents to get her fired. She blames her bad temper for the reason why she got Eva fired. For a grade 9, one of Sheila's first reactions to Eva Smith's death is the question, is she pretty? As she too only judges worth by appearance. In this comment, she's reflecting back to how she's perceived. She was only of value to Gerald and Arthur if she too is pretty and well dressed. In this way, Sheila perceives Eva as a threat to her. Superficially, it is because of Eva's looks that Gerald is attracted to her. Let's look in some depth then at a key page from this scene, or from this act. Inspector crossing Sheila. In fact, in a kind of way you might be said to be jealous of her, of course linking to the 7 deadly sins. Yes, I suppose so. And you used the power you had as the daughter of a good customer and also a man well known in the town to punish the girl just because she made you feel like that. Yes, but it didn't seem to be anything very terrible at the time. Don't you understand? And if I could help her now, I would... The inspector interrupts. Yes, but you can't. It's too late. She's dead. My God, it's a bit thick when you come to think of it. Oh, shut up, Eric. I know. It's the only time I've ever done anything like that, and I'll never do it again to anybody. I've noticed them giving me a sort of look sometimes at Millwoods. I noticed even this afternoon, and I suppose some of them remember. I feel now I can never go there again. Oh, why did this have to happen? Her short sentences suggest Sheila's immaturity, but also a simple guilt and remorse at what happened. The sentiment of helping is repeated by Arthur at the end, but in Sheila's case she's cut off as the inspector makes his social message clear. Her tone and sentence construction here is once again childlike, emphasising her need to grow and mature, but also the simplicity of the lesson itself. Sheila's role in the suicide effectively ends here, with the rhetorical question that we're posed to by the writer, Priestley. Sheila herself is thinking about this for the rest of the play, and we are led to think of the unspoken answer is capitalism. Oh, why did this have to happen? Because of capitalism. The writer's purpose. In many ways, Sheila is the voice of the next generation and becomes the inspector once Gould has left. Priestley explores the changing role of women in society through Sybil, Sheila, and Eva. Through his changing portrayal of Sheila, he suggests the shift in women's rights at the time. Women were becoming more powerful. She grows in confidence, as this trait pushes the men in life away at the end of the play. She doesn't need a man to look after her, she stands up for herself. Priestley emphasises the gender divide, and the new confidence of Sheila foreshadows the role of women in the future. Priestley saw all as equal regardless of background, race or sex. If there was a hero in the play, Sheila would be it. In summary, Sheila is responsible for the suicide because she didn't like the way Eva looked at her in the dress. She hated the fact the servant was laughing at her because of how she looked. And she used her family's reputation, power and influence to have Eva sacked. Summarise Act 2. She refuses to leave against Gerald and her mother's wishes. Sheila chooses to stay and listen to the inspector question Gerald in detail. She understands the inspector knows things and starts to talk down to her mother, first and then later her father as well. She listens to the inspector then question her mother, ultimately judging her. Sheila is the first to realise who the father of Eva's child is, and ultimately Sheila lacks the power to save her family, although she repeatedly warns them of what the inspector's trying to do. She is unable to convert them and ends the scene crying quietly as she realises it's too late to really make any difference. Key quotes then from Act 2. In Act 2, Gerald is reluctant to talk about the affair, as it is a hidden aspect of being upper class. Sheila's comment of, "Were you seeing her in the spring and summer?" suggests that the affair was one of a chain in Gerald's life. Sheila could emphasise either the word her in this sentence, "Were you seeing her spring and summer?" to indicate disgust that this is a working class girl, or you could emphasise the word and, "Were you seeing her spring and summer?" to imply outrage at Gerald's repeated unfaithfulness. A summary then of Act 3. Sheila turns on her parents for trying to pretend that nothing happened. She shows genuine remorse over her part in Eva's death. Along with Eric, she's not concerned with the true identity of the inspector, for her real point is to learn from her past mistakes and change the way she treats people like Eva. Looking then at a key page from this scene, we see stage direction, suggesting how it is Sheila who is now teaching a lesson as she speaks slower and more responsibly than she did at the beginning. We can see her sentence structure now is calm and controlled, a direct contrast to how she spoke at the start of the play. Sheila's stage direction here suggests unease as she realises the effect of capitalism. She becomes very uptight and tense. She knows that it is wrong and scared what her lack of apathy means. The language here implies Priestley's own standpoint. Sheila is speaking for the writer and the audience here. It frightens me the way you talk. Priestley has Sheila use the language of law here, as she admits a crime was committed. This strengthens the sense of guilt she feels. Her tone is interrogative, as she mirrors the inspector's language and attempts to teach her father a lesson he's incapable of learning. Key quotes then from Act 3. But then we can ask ourselves, well, if it is a hoax and the inspector is not real, who actually suffers? Well, on Arthur Birling, there's no consequences. Sybil Birling the same. Eric is a thief and a father-to-be, so actually no real crime committed there as far as the other characters are concerned. Gerald's an adulterer, but by the sound of it he always has been, so it hasn't really changed him. But Sheila Birling is the only member of the family who's actually personally been wronged by the events of the evening. She no longer has a husband-to-be. Her father is now looking down upon her as almost to the point of disowning her. So all the main men in her life, all the principles of her life have massively changed. If the inspector wasn't real and it was a hoax, then the only change really felt in the problem, the only character really left with a problem is Sheila. All the others can cover up their crimes, but it's Sheila who's left with a broken relationship and questions regarding who she is as a person. The audience reactions in 1945. What would they think? Would they think as we do about Sheila? It is Sheila who says the most lines at the end of the play, as she is Priestley's proxy or mouthpiece once the inspector has left. Priestley leaves the world to a woman who lacked the power to change it in 1912. She's unable to change Mr. Birling and Mrs. Birling's opinions. She lacks the power to do so, but that will come in time. The mainly female audience watching the play in 1945 would realise that they had the power to do what Sheila couldn't. They are women about 20 years later than Sheila herself. Many of the men were still fighting in the war, so they at the moment were the ones doing the jobs. Perhaps then this is Priestley empowering those women to do what Sheila can't and stand up and fight for themselves. It wasn't long afterwards when women got the vote. Some key quotes then for Sheila and some sentence structures. By the start of the play, Sheila is presented initially as naive and a little immature. As the play develops, Sheila is revealed to be shallow and jealous, but her character develops as she shows remorse for her actions and reflects on her actions. And by the end of the play, Sheila has learnt from her mistakes and is noticeably a changed person. She feels genuine remorse for her involvement in the events leading up to Eva's death. Now it's time to look at an essay. Remember, this is a morality play. It's trying to teach us the message of socialism, and all the characters are constructs. They are built to represent different parts of society. Once more, we're going to look at one particular page, and in this case, we're not going to look at the full list of things you should watch out for. See the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to focus on where in the play it comes from and why this is important. Here, then, is an example from the end of the play.
Nice people now.
Sheila, if you've nothing more sensible to say than that, you'd better keep quiet.
Oh, she's right, though.
And you'd better keep quiet anyhow. If that had been a police inspector and he'd heard you confess...
Arthur, careful.
Yes, yes.
You see, Gerald, you haven't to know the rest of our crimes and idiocies.
That's all right. I don't want to. Well, sir, what do you make of this business now? Was it a hoax?
Once more, we need to look at the level criteria. Please pause the video and take a look at that for yourselves. And we need to think as we study this extract that this scene comes from the end of the play. Sheila is more angry now and can't believe her father and mother aren't accepting their part in Eva's suicide. She's becoming the teacher of moral lessons to her parents. a very big difference to the role she had at the start of the play. Here then is my response to this particular section. You can see the parts in red are showing how she's changed compared with what she's like at the start. By the conclusion, we witness Sheila's growth. She has matured. This juxtaposes her own simplistic language at the start of the play. All these statements suggest that she is evolving and changing as a character. Please pause the video to look at other skills I've used there, how I've used links to the writer, how I've used quotes, and how I've analysed quotes. Here then is a full essay linked to the following question. Write about the characters of Sheila and Eric and the way they are presented in Inspector Calls. My opening paragraph would explore what Sheila and Eric are like at the beginning of the play. You can see that I've analysed quotes, I'm talking about the audience, and the number of quotes is important, how much evidence I'm actually using. This is paragraph 2 then. Again, pause the video to read this through yourselves, as you can see how I'm using the quotes that I've spoken about in this video. And then I have at the end of the play how these characters have changed, how they've evolved as characters or not, as the case might be, and how the evidence suggests this. I've looked once more at parents' reactions to them and thinking about how the audience react as well. Thank you very much for listening to this video, this revision guide for Sheila Birling from your GCSE post-1914 drama text and Inspector Calls.